Yep. We were
Okay.
so close. It looked
I'm
good.
so close. And you know what? Now I know I just have to do it the opposite way. So sorry, everybody. I will.
Yeah, that's all right. 7:01. We get the time for a few more people to get in here. It's all good.
Yeah, it's by design. We're going to do
Yep.
this.
Perfect.
Now you can see it?
Yep, looks great.
Awesome. Okay.
All right, I see a couple names I recognize, and because and I see an old Deer Lodge connection, which is always fun. So let's go ahead and get going. So a couple of things as we get going. So my name's Chad Hazelbaker. I'm the Vice President of Enrollment Management and Marketing at Carroll College. Today we're talking about academic support at Carroll College. It's the third session of our Tuesday Talks series. And we're lucky because tonight we have Annette Walstead, who does academic advising across campus, on with us. And so she's going to walk us through his presentation. And then when we get done with her presentation, sometimes where you can ask some questions about academic advising. So the chat window is open for you to ask your questions. But with that, I will hand it over to Annette Walstead, and she can tell us a little bit more about how we support students academically at Carroll College. So Annette, it is all yours.
Super. Thanks very much, Chado, and thanks for asking me to present. So one thing that you need to know about me is that I really, really love working with parents. I'm a parent of 3 college students, 1 graduate, and then 2 are currently in college right now. And I tell you, it is a humbling, I think every stage of parenting is humbling in some respects, but the college years are no different. It's very, very exciting as we're trying to launch our young adults into their futures. And I just really enjoy working with the students. This college age student is just so incredible. But then also working with parents. I feel your pain, I feel your joy, and feel like I can connect well. So please let me know if you have questions. I look forward to that part of our presentation. So Chado may regret this, but he just gave me, kind of free range to really just talk about whatever I wanted to. So here we go. Couple other things before I get started. I'm a Carroll grad a few years ago, but I worked in the admissions office for about 3 years right out of college. Then I went away for about 20 years. And then I've been back in this role of director of the Saint Success Center Academic Advising and Support for the last 10 years. So it is, I just feel like I have the greatest job in the world because I get to work in a place that I love with students that are incredible. So let's get going. Please, please, please advance, right? Did it work? Is that a yes? Okay.
Sorry, I was muted. Yeah, it was a little slow, but it came through just fine. And
Okay,
it's all
super.
fine.
So I know that some of you have probably launched some college kids, but just to kind of give an overview of some of the big transitions that your students will be experiencing as they leave high school and go to the college. And one of them is pace. And what's interesting about this is the pace can be slower or it can be faster, and that depends on where we're at in the semester. At Carroll right now, we are hitting midterm, and let me tell you, hold on to your hats. I mean, it's just going 100 miles an hour, and our students are really feeling that difference in the pace. And so there's nothing to really do except be aware and really get good at those time management and organization skills, because that's where we really see our students struggle is when they don't have those types of skills. So that might be something that you can start working with your student right now if they need a little nudge in that direction. The other thing that is really a challenge for our students is this illusion of time, is what I call it. And that is because they're used to going from a high school schedule, typically where they've had big blocks of time. Now, in this COVID world, it's very, very different. So I know your students are experiencing something that, you know, we haven't experienced, where it might be more self-directed learning than we would typically see. But what we find is our students are surprised at the fact that they might be in class only 3 hours a day, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. They might have a 10 o'clock, a 2 o'clock, and a 4 o'clock. And then on Tuesday, Thursday, nothing until the afternoon. And so it feels like you have a lot of time, but again, the workload really needs that amount of time. And so again, that time management and organization is really key. I always like to mention to my parents that I think one of the best things about Carroll is that we're small and personal. And I think sometimes one of the biggest challenges for students is that we're small and personal. And so to be able to just balance those two things. One thing I know is that although Carroll is a relatively small school, we offer all of the academic support services that one would expect. And we may be just 1 or 2 people offices, but we have all of our bases covered, and we have a lot of integration. And I'm going to talk about integrated advising in a second. Another thing I wanted to mention is just that idea of family support. And this is a time of transition where sometimes our students, when they're getting ready to go off to college, it's really that push-pull. But I just want to remind you that our students really need us to support, encourage, and offer that advice. They sometimes don't act like they want it, but it is really helpful to be involved in this process. There's a really big expectation in transitioning to college of that self-directed learning. And like I mentioned before, I think COVID has really changed how our students are learning for your students in their senior year. And so if this is true for your student, then that will serve them well in the college years, just because they will have a lot of reading and outside work. And not a professor, you know, very often won't say, you know, this is due when. There's an expectation that they know they can read the syllabus, and Moodle is our learning platform, and that they will be taking care of those details on their own. And there's also a high expectation for academic achievement. And one of the things we know is we attract really well-qualified, smart students. And sometimes it's a little shocking when the students get back, you know, a grade that they're not used to seeing, because they're going to be challenged in different ways. And I don't say that to scare anyone off. I hope that's actually even encouraging, because what I really want to emphasize is we have the academic support to help your students figure out that transition, the academic transition from high school to college. But I admit week 3 and 4 is when a lot of our first tests hit on campus. And you can tell students are getting back feedback that they're not used to. And we really try to help students really take that information and adjust what they have been doing to prepare in classes, so that they can do better the next time around. And our professors are really, really helpful and good at working one-on-one with students to figure that out. But I do want to share with you what I consider our integrated advising. And again, a lot of what I'm talking about is just the areas of support across campus that we provide to students, so that they can do their best, not only in the classroom, but also in intercollegiate athletics or on the forensics team or, in the theater program, so that they can be really well-rounded students and just take that with them into life. So we have these different areas that work together. The academic programs, of course, the majors, the minors, the certificates, those types of things are critically important. But then there's also student life, and how is a student developing their leadership skills and their organization, their communication skills, all of those things. We provide opportunities through student government and clubs, campus ministry, just across campus, hopefully something that will click with your student and really help them develop their skills. We have programs like ROTC, theater, some of those extracurricular and co-curricular programs that again enrich the education. And then we have this core foundation, which we're really excited about because we have a brand new core in 2020. So your students will be the second class to go through using that core. And our students are really, they're really adapting well to that. And there are some really cool features that I will share with you in a little bit. So academic support services in the area that I'm involved with is the Saint Success Center. And this is a one-stop shop. We're in Borromeo Hall, which is, if you've been on campus, it's the two-story kind of long flat building right behind the fountain. So we're in a great location for students to be able just to pop in and get a question answered or to hang out in one of our study rooms. And we often tell students that if you don't know where else to go, just come to the Saint Success Center and we'll help you figure it out. And that's really the motto that we live by. Academic advising, testing services, career services and internships, veteran services, education abroad, and then our nationally competitive scholarships, things like Fulbright, Gilman, Truman, those types of scholarship programs are run out of our area. And what we're all about is supporting students and giving them opportunities to really grow, both academically and personally. So I wanted to share with you just some of the advising that happens even before your students get here. And when our students, our new students who will join us in the fall, when they commit to Carroll and submit a deposit in the spring, we will then in April, it was April this year, my guess is it will be that same type of a timeline next year. But we send what we call the academic questionnaire, the AQ. And the AQ is about 25 questions where we ask your student just all sorts of things from, what time of day would you like to take classes, to major, minor, goals, other things that they may want to do, like education abroad or sing in the choir. And with all of that information, we create a draft schedule for them to review. And then all summer long, we work with our students, our entering students, to fine tune that and tweak that so that they come in the fall attempting a schedule that is challenging but not overwhelming. That's the balance that we hope that we strike. And I think that one of the things I love about this system is it gives our students, your students, a opportunity to really kind of put down their goals for their college career. So do you want to study abroad? Do you want to, do you want to do an internship? Do you want to double major? All of those types of things that they can start thinking about. And then we help them figure out their first schedule so that they can be on the right path to accomplish those goals. Once our students are here in the fall, we have an advising model that is a cohort model. So rather than a department model, the first year, our students are advised in a cohort, and that cohort is determined by their first class. It's what we call the FYC, the first year cohort course. And it can be a core 110, which is part of our new core, or it can just be a designated course. That doesn't really matter. What's important is that the professor of that class serves as the advisor for those students for most of the first year. And sometimes people say, well, that's weird, this person won't know anything about my major. And that's actually part of the design. And let me explain why I think that is awesome. First of all, because the professor is also the advisor, your student will be with that person 2 or 3 times a week for the first semester, because they'll be going to class, but they're also in this dual role of advising. And what we have found, and this is a model we've had for over 20 years, is that we're able to help students with the transition to college very well in this model, because we have someone who's really paying attention. A student doesn't show up for a day or two, or a student is struggling with their writing, or you can tell they're just a little off. That professor is going to reach out and support that student in a very special way. So we find that it helps with our ability to connect students to the support services that they need, whether that's academic tutoring or if that is counseling in the wellness center. So I really love that part of it. The other reason I'm glad we don't have department advisors at this first year, especially the first semester, is because we know students change their major. And so that's another one of those almost embarrassing moments that I came in biology or nursing or English, and I'm not interested in that. I want to go a different direction. So because they have a general advisor that first semester, they're able to make that transition. And then in the spring of their first year, they confirm their major. Sometimes they select a new one, and then they request a department advisor. And it's at that point that they move on to a department advisor. And it's really a process that has really worked well for our students over the year. And we also have pre-professional advisors, pre-law, pre-med, pre-dentistry, in addition to the FYC and the department advisors, but somebody who really specializes in those special programs. So that's another way that we help with advising. So very quickly, I want to show you 2 cool tools that we have. We have a system that our students and advisors use. It's called student planning. And this is an example of one of the screens where a student is able to pick classes and see in this grid view how they will work. All the green on this particular schedule are registered classes, and the yellow is one that's just an idea, it's just planned. But your students, after we have worked with them with the questionnaire, the academic questionnaire, will have access to this system where they're going to be able to plan out their different semesters. Another thing that it does for just keeping our students on track for graduation, which is really important, that we want to graduate students in 4 years, is, my progress. And this allows students to keep track of so many things, including how many credits they have earned or where they are in the march to the 122 required credits for a Carroll degree. So those are just 2 examples of ways that we try to help students and give them the power and the ability to be fully engaged in their graduation planning, with the help of advisors, of course. So I want to point out where you can find specific information on the website. We have a 4-year plan for each of our majors. And this is just an example of the screen on our web page. If you just type in the search 4-year plan, you will come to this place. And I do want you to note that we have this little kind of disclaimer that we are continually working on the 2020-2021 four-year plans. And so we're adding specialties all the time. So for example, in biology, you can get a biology degree, but some students want to go into research. Some students want to go pre-med or pre-dental. So we will have examples of each one of those areas and how the four-year plan would look. So this is where you access them, and this is what they look like. So here's just an example of the biology four-year plan. It's broken down. I could only fit 3 years on here, but there is a fourth year. So we have the first year and second year, but the colorful part is how we are designating the core. And you'll note that there are some requirements. Let me give an example. So for example, this student needs to take biology 121, 122, or 123 in that first semester. And it's going to count not only for their major, but also a pink distribution core. So it is just a way that you can get an idea of how Carroll puts their majors together. But more than anything, I just want you to know that we have caring people who love working with students, and we will help explain this every step of the way. And I think my last slide is something that the school motto is, I always get it wrong, non scolae sed vitae. How did I do, Chato? But basically it's not for school, but for life. And part of our new core is sed vitae, for life. And we have this requirement to really encourage our students to go above and beyond and to really challenge themselves. And I just think some of the things that they can do are incredibly fun and exciting and just really enhance their education. So things like nationally competitive scholarships, applying for a Truman Scholarship, a Gilman, a Boren. We've had students in all of those in the last couple of years. We have a couple of students right now who are applying for Fulbrights, and one student who's applying for our Rhodes. So those are just exciting kind of capstones to their Carroll education. Global learning, of course, right now with COVID, it's we're living in strange times, but different things are happening in this area. We encourage study abroad, which can be a semester, a year long, or very common at Carroll, a faculty-led short term, anywhere from 2 to 6 weeks. And so there's really an option that fits every student, different budgets, different time availability. And it's really also an exciting enhancement to the Carroll education. Undergraduate research opportunities, shadowing and internships, and then service learning. Each one of those is just an enhancement and can be really tailored to the student's specific interests and goals. And so our advisors help students not only identify, but then also through the application process so that they can be successful in those. So that is what I have, and I'm sure I missed some things that Chato, please jump in and let me know if there's something that you'd like me to cover, and then we'll just open it up for questions.
Great. Well, we already have our first question here, Annette. So good job. You got some things teed up for you here. So the question is, must students select their major during their first year? If not, what percentage defer decision to a second year?
Okay, so no, students do not have to declare a major. We have undeclared as basically a major. And by the spring of their sophomore year, it's 45 credits. That's when we have the policy that students need to have declared a major. So 3 semesters, they're able to explore, take core requirements, and basically just delay that decision. We only have 2 majors that if a student doesn't start at the beginning, they're adding time, and that's nursing and engineering, unless a student is able to take the math, it's usually the math requirements that make engineering impossible to catch up on. So those are really the only two majors. Everything else, even biology. We've had students switch over to biology as a junior or as a sophomore and still complete in 4 years. And that's one of the reasons the 4-year plan and that planning tool that I showed you are so important, is because you can map everything out. You can figure out, you know, if a student switches a major late or declares a major, you know, a little bit late and they need to make up a credit or two, you know, do they need to take something in the summer? But that's where the advising tools and the advisors really will help students. One of the things I will mention is that advising questionnaire becomes very important for our students who are undeclared, because what we ask is, you know, what's your major? Undeclared. If undeclared, what are you thinking? And so they might put something there. But then we also have question number 25, which is basically, tell us anything that you need us to know about your hopes and dreams and goals and what you want your first semester schedule to look like. And that's usually where we get a long list of, I'm thinking this, I'm thinking this, I'm thinking this, I'm just so unsure. And then we help build a schedule to allow that student to really explore those interests.
Great, thanks, Annette. And then one of the things to really think about is we really talk about as a side-by-side comparison with colleges is really look at what that 4-year and 6-year graduation rate is. One of the things we talk about a lot, and one of the reasons why I really enjoy working with Annette's staff is because they're so dedicated to making sure that students really have the ability to get done in 4 years. Because of the relative size of Carroll College, we don't end up with that situation that I'm sure you've heard schools having, or you know, you've heard neighbors or other children you have at the college deal with, which is they can't get into a class, so it puts their graduation ahead. We don't run into that situation at the college in most cases. It's very, very rare, and they can always kind of figure out kind of how to make that schedule work. And a lot of times that ability to graduate in 4 years is just a tremendous cost saver for students. You know, that 5th and 6th years get very expensive just in terms of the cost of actually attending college, but also really gets expensive in terms of the way that you think about lost wages as well. So that extra year to school sometimes can be really expensive. So another question here, Annette, can you speak a little bit about how you work with transfer students?
Oh, sure. So transfers, we have a designated person over in the admissions office who's the transfer coordinator, and she works with the advising staff to help those students with the process. And once a student has gotten us all of the transcripts, we do a course-by-course evaluation, and then we work with that student and the department advisors. They are not generally advised. They go straight to a department advisor as a transfer, so that they come into Carroll and join the major at the appropriate level. It's a very personal and personalized process, which is one of the advantages of having you know, that small school, because we can take that amount of time. That course by course evaluation is really important because that feeds then right into our advising platform, so that a student can see exactly how Carroll brought in each of those transfer credits and what specific requirement it is satisfying. And sometimes it's an elective, it shows up like that and counts toward the 122 credits required of the major or the degree. So all of that information just comes together through that registration and advising process.
And then a really good follow-up question along the same lines here. So Laura has a running start student, and they're going to graduate from high school with an AA degree. Laura, actually also, previous to this job, I lived in Washington, and I had a running start student of my own. So I know that those are great classes, and that goes really well. And it looks like her student is potentially interested in pre-med. But the question is how do we know which of the community college's courses will transfer over to Carroll? And can that be done prior to enrollment? Can they get that transcript evaluation prior to enrollment?
Sure. Let me just explain how that process works. So we will do unofficial evaluations really at any point. And Chad will correct me if I'm wrong, but that is through the admissions officer would be the one that would coordinate that. And then we have people over in our area. Is that correct, Chado? Is that still?
Yep.
Okay. Okay. So then we have Jake Samuelson is the person in my office that is designated as the Running Start dual enrollment contact, and he does the initial evaluation. Once the student has deposited and we have official transcripts, then that's officially evaluated and it's posted to that advising platform that I showed you, so that again, students are able to see exactly how those credits are going to filter into their plan and what credits remain. We often get this time of year questions about, I'm looking at this class or this class. Do you have a recommendation? And through, again, the admissions counselor and then Jake in our office, we're able to work with students to help them make that determination. Often with Running Start,
Great.
let me just follow up. Often with Running Start, we have requirements as part of our liberal arts Catholic identity is that we have philosophy and theology courses that are often missing from the Running Start or dual enrollment program. But things like, literature, history, psychology, all of those types of classes transfer in very, very well.
And then what sort of career planning and or grad school services do you offer? And Annette, that's great because it's right in your office.
It is. So we have career services and internships along with the other advising that we have. And so we have a couple of career classes that we offer. One is career exploration. It's a 1-credit class that undecided students, we really highly encourage them to take, but also students who come in thinking one thing and then are changing their mind. So we have that class. We also, on the other end, we have what we call job search boot camp, which is helping our students transition from the college environment to the workplace. So we have those offerings, but then we also have Wes Feist is our career services assistant director, and he works with students on internships, a career exploration, shadowing. I mean, there's so much that he does. He also puts on our career and graduate fair, coordinates our employers to campus and the graduate schools that are coming. I know we had a vet school and we have a pharmacy will be here this week. So he works with those different areas to connect students with graduate schools.
And one of the things about the campus that, is really just, again, it's about that one-on-one experience. I've had a lot of conversations with Wes where he says, he would like to actually see more freshmen and sophomores in his office for one-on-one appointments. So he has the capacity to do that, and that's his desire to work with them from the beginning. A follow-on to that question was really about, are there some ways to integrate career planning into grad school services or grad school placement in together with research opportunities? And Annette, you might have some additional thoughts about that, but one of the things that I always like to point out to families is being in the state capital, we have both federal and state agencies that hire a lot of our students. And so one of the things that, is just top of mind for me is that our faculty are currently working on some projects with water planning that actually students are actually getting integrated into those and are getting some credit at the same time that they're getting some research opportunities, particularly in doing local stream restoration is one of the things that really comes to mind. But Annette, other thoughts about integrating kind of research in grad school and that job search?
Yes. So So most, I mean, and Shadow, you're right. The fact that we're located in Helena is a great advantage. Also, just Carroll's reputation and place in the community, because you know, our students are well received in the different settings that that they find themselves in. If that's a, you know, job shadowing or an internship or something that turns into a job. I have a very dear friend and graduate of Carroll from, she graduated in 2018. And we were just talking the other day about the fact that her 10-hour-a-week internship is now her full-time job. That was supposed to last 6 months, and she's just been renewed through, I think she has 18 months left. So it's just one of those opportunities that has just turned into something incredible. Research opportunities as well. Many of our science faculty do research. They have grants where they hire students in the summer. We actually have a really large West Nile virus program as just an example, but they're always looking for students to serve in that capacity. We also have this really incredible undergrad research program called SURF, Student Undergrad Research. What is the last letter? I'm not even sure what it is, but we call it SURF.
Surf.
It's called SURF. And anyway, it's a day-long, basically celebration of all the research that our students are doing. And it's every major is involved, from political science to health science, all of the, you know, biology, nursing, English. And it's incredible to just see the work of our students and how polished and exceptional they are. And that is something that's held every year. This year, it was moved to an online virtual surf day. But I think that's one of the things that we are longing to bring back, because that's a huge celebration on this campus.
Yeah, and there's a really good follow-up question here about, you know, do you help students apply for graduate medical vet school and work with them on those next step processes before they graduate? And I'll let you take the time from the time they enter the college forward. But the thing that I want to say about this is we actually will start working with your students on that now. So it is not uncommon at all for students to call and say, I'd like to be pre-dental, and actually to sit down and talk with our pre-dental advisor, who's a faculty member, about what the dental school process actually looks like before they ever come to Carroll College. So because we want to make sure that students understand what that looks like in the long term. And then the beauty of that is, so if you sit down with Dr. Stephanie Otto-Hitt, before you ever get to school, you know what to expect when you get to school. And then 4 years down the road, when she's writing your letter of recommendation to dental school, then you're actually getting somebody that actually knows your entire journey and knows you at a very deep level. But you want to talk a little bit more about then how that like freshman pre-med meeting happens and kind of how that graduate school process goes along for med and vet school?
You bet. So each of our pre-professional areas has some type of an official, like a group advising meeting in the fall. We just had our pre-med where we met with first and second year, because their part of the process is very different than our juniors and seniors. And pre-pharmacy, their meeting is this week. Same is true with veterinary through zoology and the biology department. That's a joint venture, because you know they come up from both of those areas. And so the system that we have in place is we have a health professional advisor who is a part-time position in the Saint Success Center, and then West Feist in Career Services also works with our pre-med students. And we also then in each of those areas have a faculty liaison for pre-med, pre-dent, pre-optometry, pre-OT, just all of those different pre-areas in health in particular, but then also in pre-law. And Chado, remind me to mention the 3+3 for law, so I don't forget. Because we often talk about the pre-professionals in the health area, but we also have this law opportunity that's pretty exciting. So the liaison is that faculty person who knows the curriculum, the content, you know, kind of the timing of when you should take classes in certain times with certain experiences. And then we have this health advisor who is really shepherding the paperwork and the timeline and the process. And so it's a new kind of dual process that we have in place, and we're really excited to just serve students in this way, that we have the content expert in the department, but then we also have this person in our office who's really taking care of the personal statements and the timing of when to apply, when to take the MCAT, those kind of details. And so we're just getting that off the ground, and we're really excited to see how it is coming together. It's going to be awesome.
Great, thanks. And then I will come back to pre-law, but then
Okay.
there's a question here. If a student is considering two majors, one that is nursing, it sounds like it would be best to start in nursing, and then as they go through their first year, they could change their mind. But starting in nursing sounds like the right plan. Do you agree with that plan?
I do agree with that. And depending on what the other area is, it could be one of those things. Nursing is demanding. I don't think that's a surprise to anyone. And but we do have students who will sometimes they are able to double major. Sometimes a minor is more realistic. But yes, my advice would be to start in nursing and then shift. I work with I'm the pre-nursing advisor before they are accepted into the program. So in the spring, I work with all of our hopeful nursing students who will be accepted into the program. And every year, I work with 3 or 4 students who have gone through the whole nursing program to get to the end and decide that a different route is what they want to do. And very often I had 2 this year who moved from nursing to pre-med. And then I've actually had a couple who've gone the other way, pre-med to nursing, but they add on time. So my advice is, if nursing is in the running, then that's where a student should start.
And just from an admission standpoint, just a quick reminder on where we're at in the nursing admission process. So remember that there's 2 pathways into nursing, right? I shouldn't say remember, maybe you've never heard this before. There's 2 nursing pathways, right? So one is called direct entry nursing. That's for highly academically qualified students. Now, the application process is the exact same when you're a freshman. But if you apply before November 1st, you can be considered for what's called direct entry nursing. Direct entry nurses start their classes as a freshman, and as long as they meet their academic requirements, they don't have to apply at the end of their freshman year to get accepted into the nursing program. It's more or less a guaranteed spot in the nursing program. But we only have about 30 of those, and we have around 50 seats in our nursing program. So we have around 30 direct entry nurses, and then we do keep about 20 spots for students that come in as freshmen under what we call pre-nursing. Direct entry nursing students and pre-nursing students take largely the same exact classes. The only difference is that those pre-nursing students are then in a competitive process where they have to apply at the end of their freshman year into nursing, and that's what Annette's talking about there in terms of working with those students. So we've been very fortunate over the last few years in terms of number of slots. Students that have come in under pre-nursing have mostly found a home in nursing with not very many exceptions. I mean, your chances coming in at pre-nursing of getting a slot in nursing are as good or better at Carroll than any other college, at least in the region. That's just a little bit of nuance there to talk through with your admissions counselor in terms of direct entry nursing. And really the reason why I mention that is because the preferred deadline for direct entry nursing is November 1. So your student would want to make sure that they get that nursing application in by November 1 if they think they're going to qualify potentially for direct entry nursing. And Betsy has a great nursing follow-up question here. Is Could a student do nursing and or a sport, and is that basically impossible? And I'll let Annette answer that because she works with so many of our athletes. But one of my favorite things to point out about whether or not it's impossible is that we invited a nurse to speak to some students in Spokane last year. That nurse was a women's basketball player at Carroll. And 2 years ago, when we went down to the College of Idaho for that football game, we also had a soccer game that same weekend. And sitting behind me were 4 or 5 nurses that work at St. Luke's Hospital in Boise, and they were all graduates of Carroll's nursing program, had all moved to Boise together, and were at the women's soccer game supporting former teammates because they had all played college soccer while going through the nursing program. So Annette, you can talk a little bit more about nursing and athletics.
Yes, thank you, I will. So there's no question that many Carroll majors are very demanding. I'm just thinking about students who go through the pre-med program, the nursing, engineering, but every one of those majors has kind of the list of athletes who successfully completed their program. So a couple of things that it really, I think, depends very much on the determination of the student to want to keep all those goals kind of alive and moving in the right direction. It's time consuming. The demands and for travel and just practices and other team commitments is great. But our students who are successful have figured out that balance of what they need to do on the field and what they need to do, in the classroom to be successful. It is challenging, but we have coaches who really recruit student athletes. And so just strong academic students, and then they emphasize that very, very heavily, that they understand that they're students first. We do a lot of creative things as far as making sure that a student's schedule works not only with their classes, but then also around their practice schedule. Trying to do things, for example, when a sport is in season, if they travel typically Thursday, Friday, that we front load when we can their classes on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Doesn't always work, but we try to do those things to help the student be as successful as they possibly can. Sometimes our student athletes will opt to take a summer class or two to lighten their load during their season. So typically soccer is a fall sport, and so taking one less class in the fall and then loading up when they're off season, that's another kind of advising trick that that the students will employ. So it is possible. I think students need to come in with a really realistic idea of how hard they're going to need to work. But we have some incredible examples, which I know Chada would be able to connect any students with. And I think the coaches can also speak to that. What I don't hear is the student coming into my office and them saying, I need to change my major because coach says, whatever. That doesn't happen. If a student decides to change their major, it's because they have decided that their interests, their career goals, or just their academic ability doesn't support that major. But I've never heard a coach say they have to change a major because it doesn't fit their sport.
Great, thanks, Annette. And then, so why don't you come back and we're just almost wrapped up here,
Okay.
but just quickly go through that pre-law. That would be great.
Yeah, so pre-law, I guess this is our second year. We have an agreement with the U of M Law School where a student can spend their first 3 years at Carroll and then transition to the U of M Law School for basically their first year of law school and their fourth year of undergrad. When the student completes the first year of law school, then they earn their Carroll four-year bachelor's degree. And then they only have 2 more years left to complete their law degree. So again, another kind of cost-saving, time-saving agreement between our 2 schools. And we've sent 1 student who's there now in that program, and I'm working with 2 students who they will finish at the end of this year to go over to U of M next fall, is their hope. They're on track to do that and are very excited and motivated to make that happen.
Great. All right. So it's 7:50. I'll make a final call for any last questions as we wrap up here. And I have a couple of closing announcements, but anything Annette, anything you want to add as we kind of close out here?
No, thank you. This has been really fun. I love to talk about our students and the different opportunities that they have. So thank you for giving me that opportunity, Chato. And if there are any follow-up questions, just please send them our way.
Great. And so a couple of just things I want to fill the group in on. And so remember that the FAFSA opened up. So on October 1, so the FAFSA is open right now. So you can go get working on that. And if you have any questions, you can definitely ask us about that. I wanted to let you know about a couple of other things coming up for parents and for students. So next Tuesday, we have our last one of these Tuesday talks, and that will be specifically about about the on-campus living environment. It'll be specifically about the residence halls, safety and security, food service, kind of all of those questions you have about just like what it's like when students move out of the home and off campus. And we'll have our Assistant Dean of Students here to talk with us about that, along with some potential students and some other folks can really give us an idea of what that's like. We'll talk about that. That's our last Tuesday parent talk. But starting next Thursday, for students, we're doing academic panels. So starting next Thursday night, and I think it's at 7 o'clock, your students will have gotten an email, but we're doing these Zoom sessions, but we're doing them with faculty for specific major areas. So starting on next Thursday, that one will be for nurses. So any nurses, any potential nursing students can actually sit in on that academic panel and ask questions of the nurses, talk about the program. We'll have a separate one for other health sciences and pre-med majors, and then we'll have one for liberal arts majors. And again, your student will have gotten the email about that kind of information. Those are going to run all the way up until Thanksgiving. We've got some of those going, so we'll have Thursdays at 7. The other thing we have for both parents and students, starting on October the 22nd, is we're going to do some Thursday night faculty lectures. It's a good chance for you to get to know our faculty a little bit, learn a little bit about their programs. The first lecture is actually by a history professor who's well loved on campus, who's going to do some interesting things. Parents will get that information, but students will get it as well as opportunities to get in and see what actually, a little bit of what actually is happening in the classroom. So with that, I think that is all of the announcements that I have. If you're in Montana, remember that it's Montana College Application Week. And so some advantages getting your application in the next couple of weeks. And otherwise, that looks like we don't have any more questions. So Annette and I will hang out for a few minutes, but feel free to log out, and we hope that we see you not too far down the road. So thanks for spending some time with us again. Thanks, Annette. Thanks, Lori. We had lots of counselors that were in different spots tonight.
Great.
I have a question. Will there be a faculty advisor Thursday talk with the anthrozoology department?
Lori, is any anthro included on those Thursday sessions?
Not at the moment. There is, we do have anthrozoology professors who are willing to meet with students one-on-one via Zoom. So if you want to, I'll type my information into the chat box and you can let me know and we can set that up for your student. We also have some talks that we've done prior. So last semester in the spring, we did a faculty panel with anthrozoology, and that's actually out on our virtual visit page. So if you wanted to watch that Zoom link about their overview, that's out there as well.
Okay.
So that is my email address, and we can get your son or daughter connected with the anthrozoology professor.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, well, thanks, guys.
Thank
All
you.
right, I'm stopping the recording. We're down to just us. So